Yo, what it do, y'all, man? Wayne back with another vid, man. Today we're gonna talk about the Eastern Conference really that weak? You know, the Western Conference has been dominated for the past couple of years, and I just wanted to know, like, is the East really just that weak, or are we just not, respecting the talent? The last thing NBA champions, two of them has been Western Conference teams, and the one time it was an Eastern Conference team, that team had like a monopoly over the conference, really. So, what's going on? Let's check it out, really. So the Eastern Conference, it's been like this for a minute now. The Eastern Conference hasn't really been the strongest conference. It's always been seen as the Western Conference, the stronger conference. LeBron was able to make it to 30,000 finals out of the Eastern Conference because it was seen as a weaker conference, a less than conference, especially in the 2000s, kind of in the 2010s, but it had a renaissance through like the 20 2019, 2021. I would say the Eastern Conference was pretty competitive. It was multiple teams that you could see making it out the East, but now, as more guys leave the East, as injuries compile and as teams are just not as good as teams on the West, the Eastern Conference has not, you know, returned back to that glory that they had a couple of years ago. And it seems like a lot of Eastern Conference teams have been Cinderella stories lately, like the Miami Heat and the Indiana Pacers. A lot of people be surprised why they make it so deep and make it so far, rather than trying to actually look at the roster construction and if it's an actual good team. It's a lot of they should never made this far, Cinderella story. But these rosters are actually great rosters for the competition in the East, so it makes sense. The competition in the East is not that, everybody's not too far away from each other, especially next year. Like, we talk about how the Hawks have made big improvements, but compared to a Western Conference team, the Hawks probably would be like a 7 seed, to be honest with you. So it's like, the East make improvements, but the improvements of the East is compared to the East, not to the rest of the league. Because if we're just, if we're being honest here, an average Western Conference team, in my opinion, can go to the East and be a 3rd seed. The Memphis Grizzlies can go to the Eastern Conference and be a top 3 seed in the East. They cannot do that in the West. The Lakers can go to the East and be a top 3 seed in the East. They can't do that in the West. So the West is just more top heavy. It just has more everything. But at the same time, that has forced guys to step up. The Eastern Conference, in my opinion, is the more entertaining conference actually because it forces guys that we may not know to step up and play outside of their role. Shooters become scores, and regular playmakers they become like a highlight of the game. Guys like Tyrese Halliburton. He's an all time playmaker, but you get the gist. Like guys like Ty Jerome, we seen guys like that, Max Strus, Gabe Vincent. A lot of players just come out of nowhere and shine in the East. And that's what I really like. I like that about the conference, but at the same time, when it goes up against the other conference, the Western Conference, it looks pretty weak. Let's be honest here. I also do feel like the new CBA is going to, change a lot about, how we see teams constructed, especially in the East. I feel like teams in the East will be more competitive and more able to compete with teams in the West because of this CBA. A lot of teams in the West, they're fighting right now for playoff position. They're fighting for spots because they feel that they're playoff teams. A lot of teams in the East right now can step back and actually learn this new CBA and learn how to, flex it. And so once they learn how to, work around the system, they build their team around that. And I feel like that's something that the East have over the West right now. They have a chance to step back and look at what's going on and get to, either build upon what they already have or they can try to make something new off of this new CBA. So yeah, I don't think the East is gonna be weak for too long. Not necessarily. They might be a weak for, a little bit more compared to the West because the West talent is very immense right now. But, they're not gonna be weak for a long time. But I do feel like conferences kind of needs to be abolished. I don't think I don't think that conferences are necessary no more because we don't use the conferences the right way either way. We don't actually use these conferences as like a way. There's no excitement in the conferences. There's no point of having these conferences. Divisions. We basically killed divisions, and conferences are next. Conferences, there's no reason to win. Like, there's no reason to be first in the conference no more. There really isn't, but home court advantage. And that's cool and all, but like I think there needs to be more. It just needs to be more, emphasis on conferences. And especially how the NBA been talking about they are trying to expand overseas. So yeah, conferences, they're just getting like less and less value for real. And that's okay really. It's okay. I think it's time to abolish conferences and let's let's make the playoffs the wow anything. Really, but yeah, that's my thoughts, on the Easter Conference. Like, comment, subscribe, and let me know your thoughts in the comments. I'm gonna try to get a little more consistent, haven't seen me in a couple days, you feel me? But we gotta keep grinding.